Getting knocked down on the football field makes you tough. But getting back up makes you tougher. At Goodyear, we call that determination. A willingness to put in more hours, more reps, and more heart to reach a bar that's sky high. Because the Goodyear blimp doesn't show up for just anybody. So don't be just anybody. Be blimp-worthy. Goodyear, more driven.
And now, Jalen and Jacoby on ESPN Radio.
When I pop the trunk, head to death. Y'all pop the trunk, I pop the hood.
Now act stupid, I'll pop the trunk. Now give me your boom.
It has been such a long time.
We shouldn't have left you without a dope pod to step to.
He is Jalen Anthony Rose.
What up, Dow?
I'm David Jacoby.
And on the cool check-in, center stage on the mic.
And we putting it on wax. It's the new style.
We're Jalen Jacoby. What do we do?
We get the people what they want.
I feel like we owe our listeners an apology. You know, it was never our plan to be gone this long. We've had a lot going on, and we are preempted by the Little League World Series, and then preempted by the U.S. Open, so we don't have television shows, so we're trying as hard as we can to get in the studio. Sometimes it's difficult. Harlan got married. Jalen Rose had the Jalen Rose Leadership Academy golf outing. There's been a lot of scheduling conflicts, technical problems, but here we are giving you a dope pod to step to.
No question about it. I echo your sentiments. We appreciate and love our audience. They've been down with us like 4 flat tires since day one. Shout out to our producer and good friend, Harlito! Harlan Endelman and his beautiful bride who tied the knot over the weekend.
Shout out.
Last night, Jalen Rose was the premiere of The Shop on HBO. Big shout to PR, my guy, and the rest of the Spring Hill Entertainment crew and HBO for putting that together. Some things were said. One of the most notable things that was said was this from Draymond Green. Let's listen.
Can LeBron ever come on and say, I'm the best basketball player playing?
I think you should say that. I think you should believe that. And you should definitely let the world know that. I think Bron over the last 4 years became LeBron James. And it wasn't nothing to do with winning. It wasn't nothing to do with stats. He found himself. People didn't start to view him as they view him now until he became that force, that man to say, I'm here.
Jalen Rose. On Draymond Green's team is Kevin Durant and Steph Curry. Now, you know I believe that LeBron James is the best player in the world, and I think a lot of people agree with me. The majority of people that play close attention to the NBA would agree with me. Do you think that he should be saying that even though he wears the same uniform as 2 of the people that would also be considered for that status?
This is one of those topics where I enjoy being a former player in the company and fraternity and communications with almost all of the guys, in particular one who I consider like a little brother, Draymond Green. And what I will say is that must have been some good red wine because he was slurring a little bit. Number 2, one of the things that validated LeBron James actually had to do with Draymond Green. It was when he got suspended during the NBA Finals. Mm-hmm. And therefore the Cleveland Cavaliers were able to win the first championship in that city's professional history in over 50 years. Yeah. It just shows the progress of the game. And I know a lot of people who have the get off my lawn theory about professional sports. It just shows how their fraternization, their respect for one another, and their friendship is at an all-time high. And I'm not mad at it at all as somebody that grew up loving Isaiah and Magic, and those are my idols to this day. And I jumped on the couch cheering when they kissed each other on the cheek before the game. As a matter of fact, the picture's over my shoulder. Yep. I think him saying LeBron James is the best player of the game over the last few years is something that his teammates also, in their own ways, have been saying. So it's not a big deal for him to say it. But more importantly, they done won a few of the last championships, so they ain't tripping.
Yeah.
That's how it worked. They done won 3 out of 4. It's like he could be the best player, but we the best team.
Exactly. And had the Warriors lost to the Cavs in this year's final, something tells me that he wouldn't be saying that. It's one of those things. It's like, well, we won the last 2 chips, so you can have the best player thing. And I think truly even the Kevin Durant's and Steph Curry's of the world and Steve Kerr's of the world would acknowledge that LeBron James is the best player on the planet. Yep. And now LeBron James is obviously in LA. Another thing that was said during that show was something that you've heard here before on this program from Mr. Rose, was when Odell Beckham said that he felt like a zoo animal, and he went on to explain that people want him to dance because he dances a lot and people scream things at him. Yeah. I mean, you've said that before, Mr. Rose. What does it feel like, and what was he trying to say?
You appreciate your public, especially if they come at you from a positive and respectful space. And I'm one of the public figures that are fortunate enough to appreciate that people that come up to me 99.9% of the times is love, is positive, it's a shout, it's an acknowledgement. And so when the percentage of people approach you that you don't necessarily like their tone or their behavior, or taking a picture of the side of your head or the back of your head, or asking you to dance, that kind of comes with the territory, when sometimes you have to look at it like they don't want to bother you, so they're just going to take your picture. Or we did see you dance 500 times and we think you're pretty good at it. It's almost like being with a comedian and people wanting to see if they're funny all of the time. So I understand where he's coming from. And for those who get a chance to run into people that they recognize, be respectful and conscious of who they are if you claim to be a fan. And here's what I mean. I absolutely have disdain when people come up to me and give me a shout and tell me who else they know. Like, I don't care. I'm showing you love right now, regardless to who you know. So that part of it don't matter. And so I feel what he's saying, but man, I love my public, and he has a positive fan base and a lot of people that are rooting for him as well.
Yep. Well, he certainly made a lot of money. He just signed a $95 million contract, potentially 95, because he's got $5 million of incentives there, but it is $65 million guaranteed. He's now the highest paid wide receiver in the National Football League. And he said that now that has happened, he can go out and just play. What does he mean when he says that now he can go out and just play?
All I know is spin is everything. And we've said Odell Beckham was the highest paid receiver more times in the last 24 hours than we ever said it for Mike Evans and or Sammy Watkins, who actually had that title. And so what he means is he's on his Ashy Larry now. I'm rich. And so when I'm playing well and I'm feeling myself, then y'all gonna get all of me. You seen him up there with the Michael McDonald Michael McDonald cross earring. You saw him up there with the corporate Giants button up. He was on his corporate today. And they drafted Saquon Barkley. They got a left tackle in Nate Solder. I think the defense is going to resemble what it did a couple of years ago, led by Landon Collins, who I called somebody that reminded me of Sean Taylor. Yep. One of my faves, rest in peace.
Shout out.
I think the pressure being off is, if I get hurt, I already got paid. I can now sacrifice my body and my attitude, and now hopefully my statistics for a team. And that's always a level of growth you want to see from young players, especially those that are as talented as him.
There was a story about him. You say go out and just play. Every time he got injured last year, it was like, well, are they going to sign him to a big deal? And are they going to keep him? And there was rumors that potentially he was going to be traded. And there was one story that one team that was potentially interested in trading for Odell Beckham Jr. hired a private investigator to look into his personal life and his movements just to get some more intel about who this human being is that they were about to potentially trade assets for. Is that within the lines of reason? Is that just a corporation doing their due diligence because they could be giving something up to bring this employee into the company, like a background check that any old corporation would do on a new employee? Or is that a little bit of a violation of personal space, in violation of sort of trust?
That's basic service. If you're about to go try to purchase something, they check your credit. If you're trying to get a scholarship for a college or university, they're going to scour your social media pages and check the post. That's what happens in 2018. The information is available to you. And if you're not taking advantage of it, you're the fool. You're not saying that they're in his home behind closed doors. You're saying they're following him when he's out for public consumption. That's what's happening to all of us. Anybody that has a camera or a phone is a reporter. You saw the 7-second video of him in Paris. Jacoby did not like that pizza that was on his lap.
The pizza did not look good. That
and I'm not sure what substance that was of the model, allegedly, that he was in the bed with. So that's what I want young people to understand is WWW stands for World Wide Web. And when you put things in the atmosphere, they don't necessarily go away. And you have to be conscious of it. And let me say one other thing. Here's a media spin that I hate. And I saw the Giants owner do this.
I love it when you do this. You act like you're not part of the media.
Let's stop trying to act like, oh, he showed up in training camp and he had a good attitude. If all I got to do is go to practice, work with the trainers because my ankle was busted last year and get $95 million, that ain't a long sacrifice. That's actually my job. So this idea that, oh, he was in camp. Yeah, I bet he wasn't with Drake. I bet he wasn't with Chloe. He wanted to get $65 million guaranteed. That's smart.
Of course. If they hired a private investigator to follow me around, they'd be like, well, we didn't get much dirt, but I do have this to say. This guy plays way too much golden tee. Like this guy's playing video golf 2-3 times a week. I don't know if that's healthy. Like he should spend a little bit of that time in the film room and out of the golden tee.
Getting knocked down on the football field makes you tough. But getting back up makes you tougher. At Goodyear, we call that determination. A willingness to put in more hours, more reps, and more heart to reach a bar that's sky high. Because the Goodyear blimp doesn't show up for just anybody. So don't be just anybody. Be blimp-worthy. Goodyear, more driven.
If they hired somebody to follow me around, they'd be like, he don't do a lot of champagne and campaigning like he claimed he do.
Yeah. He acts like he does, but it's really in his basement watching Power. He watches Power
like, those
every week
that he
3
talks
times.
about drinking, he's actually warming them up in the microwave.
I think we're washed up, Jay. I think that's what happened to us. Over the course of the 7 years we've been doing this show, we've definitely got a lot more washed than we used to be. The post-show meetings aren't the same anymore.
Over the 7 years of this program, big shout to the podfather who made it all possible, Bill Simmons.
Shout out.
Is that you had 3 kids and I've gotten married. Mm-hmm. Life-changing moments in the maturation process of this show, and I became the founder of a charter high school. We're adults now.
Yep. And they put us on in the afternoon. You know, we were on in the middle of the night, we could kind of say whatever we wanted, but now we're on in the afternoon when the executives can see. Well,
they ain't watching us.
No, they ain't.
We'll be back. They just
fully.
see the TV. They ain't hearing it.
Right now, it is that time of year when everyone's in training camp and everything's all good and everyone's attitude is great and everyone's outlook for the season is so good. So one of those reports, and everyone developed their game in the NBA this summer. Everyone added that wrinkle that they needed. And one of those wrinkles, a lot of that's coming from Philadelphia. We've got Ben Simmons saying that he's been working on his jump shot and his free throw, and that the jump shot, if you make the defense respect your jump shot, it's going to open up the rest of your game. I still think he's shooting it with the wrong hand, just like you do. Yep. But that being said, do you expect dramatic improvement from the outside from Ben Simmons this year?
Man, the way he played as a third-year rookie was phenomenal. A guy that not only makes teammates around him better, just a physical specimen with his height, his poise, his demeanor on the floor. I like the way he plays really smart, situationally, finishes at the hoop. I think that him making 2 3-pointers this year is going to be dramatically improving. It's almost like the Cleveland Browns winning 5 or 6 games.
Yep.
Because it was just that bad.
Yep.
And based on the fact that he's in the gym, now he's in the tabloids too. Yep. I see him out here with a Jenner, living his best life. I am not mad at him. I've matured to understand that those young ladies are entrepreneurs and they have a lot of supporters and they create a lot of interest. So I'm not mad at him. He young, he living his best life. If I was that age, I'm pretty sure I'd probably be doing that too. With that being said, Philadelphia, I talked about him and Joel Embiid. If Fultz can play up to the promise that he showed at the end of the regular season, Wilson Chandler's going to give him some versatility up front, a guy that can shoot threes, play D. Yep. Philadelphia and Boston, Toronto, and I'm saying Washington. I think those 4 teams on paper, along with Indiana too, have distinguished themselves as like solid, interesting, may take the next step type teams, with the Boston Celtics being my favorite to come out of the East just because they're so deep.
And we putting it on wax.
I'm glad you mentioned Markelle Fultz because one of my life philosophies is always keep expectations as low as possible, right? Gotta keep expectations as low as possible, especially if you're dealing with someone like Fultz, who had a difficult year physically, but it also felt like he had a difficult year mentally last year. Yep. Just dealing with the pressures of being an NBA basketball player, being the number 1 pick, dealing with injury issues early in the year, and then everyone picking apart his jump shot. And now we have some reports that the Sixers are very happy with his development and the work that he's been doing with the trainer, and that they plan on playing him big minutes and, wait for it, starting Markelle Fultz. Now, we haven't heard this from Brett Brown himself, but do you think that this is a good idea to have people like me get this information and start raising the expectations for Markelle Fultz once again as we head into a regular season? Because I would try to keep them as low as possible.
Not at all, because the expectations start when you go number 1. So it really doesn't matter what they say. It's at the end of the year, he showed me he can ball, and he had a triple-double, and I was scratching my head wondering why he couldn't get any minutes in the playoffs, especially when the guy you traded him for, Jason Tatum, on the other side, is lighting your squad up. Like that's a double negative for a young player, and can impact him in a way that it could have took some time emotionally to recover from. Yep. Especially when they were talking about him having the jibs?
Yep. Yips.
With his jump shot. And so I anticipate him playing big minutes. I wouldn't be surprised if he's starting, and I think he's going to do well.
Interesting. Well, again, everything's all perfect in training camp, but things are certainly looking good for what you are calling the favorites in the East, the Boston Celtics. Danny Ainge just went on wax and said that both Kyrie Irving and Gordon Hayward will be at 100% heading into training camp and playing 5-on-5 basketball. What does that tell you about their season and where you expect them to go this year?
Celtics aren't just the best team in the East. They're the second best team in basketball.
Really?
The Golden State Warriors. What? No question. The Golden State Warriors will be the first team since the 60s to start five. How you going to take the Rockets?
Yep.
Okay. What? Name me their 5 starters.
Name you their 5 stars. That's what you really want me to do right now?
Yeah.
Okay. Chris Paul. And then we got Mr. Harden. And then we actually have a center, unlike the Boston Celtics. Clint Capella. I'm going to start PJ Tucker. And you do get into a tricky spot right around here with the 3 because Ariza and Bob Moute were very important for them at that time. So I'm just going to throw Carmelo Anthony in there because he's going to be finishing the game.
All right. Now, who are their top 2 performers off the bench?
Top 2 performers off the bench. Again, you got Carmelo Anthony and resurgent year from one gentleman named Ryan Anderson who'll be hitting open threes because there'll be a lot of those. And you got Eric Gordon, who is not just one of the top players off the bench, but one of the top players off the bench in the league, always in the running for 6th man of the year. That's a solid team that I would pick over the Celtics. I would pick them over the Celtics.
I appreciate what you did there. And by the way, it's 6 in one hand and half a dozen in the other. I think both of those squads are going to be pushing high 50s, low 60s in wins. I think the Celtics will probably have a better record because they're going to get a chance to play 52 games against Eastern Conference competition, unlike the Rockets who play in the West. So my argument is actually going to win based on that logic. But I see where you're coming from. But look, Al Horford, who you just summarily dismissed right off the top.
He's a
was
4.
only an all-star this year. He's only
4.
one of the only bigs in the league that get this, that leads his team in assist. Really good playmaker. Improved as a 3-point shooter. And also plays defense. Just so you know. Mm-hmm. And what concert was this? I don't know why I'm drawing a blank. I just saw him at a concert recently.
Al
Horford?
I
just saw him at a concert.
Probably Kenny G. You know, some easy listening.
No. It was
Michael Bolton.
I was there with Molly. MSG.
Oh, Jennifer Lopez.
What concert did we just go to?
You went to Jennifer
before
Lopez?
That one. The other.
Why are you asking me?
What's the other really famous artist? I'm just drawing a blank. But anyway, the Boston Celtics made the conference finals without their starting backcourt. Okay? Mm-hmm. They took number 3 picks in back-to-back drafts of Jalen Brown and Tatum, who gonna be all-stars. They re-signed Marcus Smart this offseason. Scary Terry made a name for himself in the playoffs. They still have Marcus Morris up front. Okay. The Celtics, I feel like if there is a team to push, I feel like there are 4 teams that could push the Warriors this year. Okay. Unlike this past season.
Let's have it.
Putting it on wax.
We mentioned 2, Boston and Houston. The other 2, if anybody looking for a bandwagon to jump on, I'm about to give y'all one.
Say it. I know what you're going to say. Say it.
The Oklahoma City Thunder.
I knew you were going to say Oklahoma City. I'm already there.
The Oklahoma City Thunder.
I'm already there.
Oklahoma City going to be really good. I'm telling you, even if you don't like sports and you like Jalen and Jacoby and you want to sound smart, or even if you betting, since we throwing it out there because it's legal, OKC going to be really good, really versatile. Those squads, I think, of course, the Warriors are the faves, but are going to present interesting matchups when they play against the Golden State Warriors.
And I also think that people, especially in the last few years, have just sort of reduced the NBA down into 2 or 3 teams, and they've kind of forgotten the fact that anything can happen in a playoff series. It's nothing is a given. Even though the Warriors are the best team does not always win the NBA championship. No. Injuries happen, funky things happen in series, upsets happen. So we'll see. But it certainly does look like we have a clear favorite in both conferences as we head into the season. But that doesn't mean that will be the NBA Finals for sure.
Nope. The Golden State Warriors have Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, who are both 50 from the floor, 40 from three, 90 from the line, MVPs in their prime. They have Klay Thompson, knockdown, catch and shoot player, terrific defensive player. They have Draymond Green, Swiss Army knife, defensive player of the year candidate. And if you have not been paying attention, one of the favorites of this show from the past 7 years, they had the nerve, they had the opportunity and took advantage of it to sign Boogie!
Boogie, 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 boogie.
Do you guys understand? Do you guys understand what happened this offseason? The Golden State Warriors, not the Sacramento Kings, when the season starts, will have Boogie
on a minimum deal.
Oh, man.
On a minimum deal. Steve Kerr said this about adding DeMarcus Cousins. He said, quote, "We're not going to change our style of play. We'll definitely add a few plays for DeMarcus down on the block, but for the most part, we're not going to change who we are." What does that say to you as someone's been in the league a long time, been watching it for a long time?
He just changed who they are when he said anything about down on the block.
Yeah. They weren't going into Zaza too much. I don't remember too many entry passes to Zaza on the block. Or JaVale McGee with his back to the basket.
Boogie, based on averages last year, would have led the Golden State Warriors in putback points, paint points, and mid-range points. Okay? He's clearly going to give them an element that they did not have. Oh, and by the way, he can shoot the three, and he has better ball skills than any of the guys you just named. Yep. The only thing that JaVale McGee could do better than Boogie is catch a lob. The only thing that Zaza could do better than Boogie is hurt Kawhi Leonard when they down 20 in game one.
Yep.
They're going to be a problem.
Yep.
I'm a squeaky toy, and I've got one job, getting chomped on by this little ankle sniffer. So pardon me for feeling inept compared to Geico, who does so much more. Like while I'm getting slobbered on, Geico is creating cool technology like their mobile app, which lets people pay their bills or file a claim. Plus, Geico is the fastest growing auto insurer for the last 10 years. Is it too much for me to ask for one more feature? Fast and friendly claim service like Geico, maybe? Oh, great. I'm getting buried again.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
One team that doesn't get discussed too much, especially when you're talking about the best teams in the league, but is worth discussing because of the potential drama. I mean, if you remember, we were captured last year by, is Paul George going to go to the Lakers? Is LeBron James going to stay in Cleveland? And that was sort of like one of the running stories that we discussed a lot. And this year, a lot of that seems to be focused around Kyrie Irving and someone else who needs to be discussed, Jimmy Butler. There were some whispers and rumors and reports last year that Jimmy Butler had some problems with the work ethic of some of his younger teammates. Andrew Wiggins comes to mind and was brought up. And, you know, he's always a prickly person, but he's a minivan. He's part of the minivan mafia, so I will never slander Jimmy Butler.
Shout out.
But now there's this from Tibbs that they're optimistic about signing an extension to Karl Anthony Towns. And Tibbs says that winning clears everything up. That if Jimmy Butler had a problem with any of his teammates, that Jimmy Butler would not hold his tongue, we would know about it, and then that's not really a thing that's going on. What do you expect to happen in Minnesota this season, and do you expect Jimmy Butler to be in Minnesota next season?
Well, it's going to be, a lot of these items are domino effects. So I'll start first with the team. If they're not top 5 or top 6, it's going to lend to Tibbs getting fired and Jimmy Butler leaving because they both were in Chicago together before they got to Minnesota.
Wow.
That's how that's going to work.
Could you see Butler get traded at the trade deadline?
Nah. Karl Anthony Towns ain't 25 yet. When they offer you $150+ million, you just take it. You don't worry about the record. You don't worry about any. You just take the money. Do what Anthony Davis did. You just take the money. Do what Greek Freak did. You just take the money, and then you deal with everything else later. Jimmy Butler is the type of player that I appreciate how hard he is on his young mates. He's also the kind of guy to be up in other people's comments that he played basketball with when they're married to them. So I look at guys a little bit different, as you know. We both are a part of power couples, and it's one thing to like a pitcher, but it's something way different to be all up in the comments being thirsty. What are your thoughts on that, David Jacoby, as you saw him be Amari Stoudemire-like?
Let me go this way with it. Could you say, if you are Jimmy Butler, that he was just trying to be complimentary? Nope. That he was just trying to say, well, wow. Nope. That's an attractive picture. Can he talk himself into this?
Okay.
It's not like he was saying, he wasn't sliding in the DMs saying, we need to get together or anything like that. Maybe he was just being complimentary, saying that was an excellent picture of this beautiful young woman who I'm mutual friends with.
Let me just say this. I'm going to answer your question and really shut you down. You're going to like this answer. But let me just preach a little bit. For anybody that's out there, let me just tell you something. When you see that somebody's in a relationship with someone else, you can't be in their comments, male or female, period. Number one. Number two, especially if y'all both verified, okay? That's a different level. That probably means like we're in the same industry or we probably ran across one another. But more importantly, what it definitely says is you know that they're in a relationship and you chose to do it anyway. So let me shut you down for your commentary. I follow my sister, your lovely wife, Joey, on IG. Mm-hmm. When she posts pictures of the kids, when she posts pictures of the family, I like them.
Sure,
but when she on vacation and she posting pictures in her bikini, I ain't liking those. I'm not in the comments.
That's why she got that privé account. That's why we got the private.
It's different.
Of course. Look, I totally understand. And, I will say this, that you offer some intelligent commentary on this because I don't know, have you ever looked at the comments or what's going on below the pictures on I don't know, Ms. Karen Rose's account? Do you ever click on the comments? Because there's 150 of them, 102 of them. Do you spend some time scrolling up and down there just to see what the pulse of the nation is? Yep. What's going on in her life? Because she's looking at them.
Let me tell you this.
Okay.
As somebody that's been in a serious relationship like 3 years with Molly Karen Rose, let me just tell you this. Any person that left a comment on her page, even before I was on IG, they got a check mark by their name, I don't even deal with them no more. They don't even realize it until they hear this podcast. They're like, oh, that's why he don't mess with me. That's why.
Do you click, if someone says that doesn't have a check mark, someone says something unruly, do you click on their profile to see what they're about, see where they live, see what their name is, see how many followers they got?
Well, you teach me because I'm new to the married game. One of my jobs beyond being a husband is to be security, to be a bodyguard. Yep. So you gotta know the pulse of the people. Am I right or wrong?
Well, I would say this. I would also be in her comments if I were you, because this is one of the closest people to you in your life, and she's reading the comments. So you just want to know what messages are going into her brain. Now, I know her well enough to know that she weighs those messages accordingly and doesn't treat them like they're the gospel or they define who she is or what people think about her. Like she's got enough perspective not to do that. But it's nice to just know what information came into her brain on her car ride home after First Take today. Were people being nice and complimentary, or were people being rude to her? How often does this happen? So when you get that, you kind of know what that commentary is going on in her life below the pictures, because anyone who's on Twitter or Instagram reads every comment. They just do. That's just kind of like the game. Yep. So as a husband, you have to be security, but you also have to be an understanding, supportive partner. And part of that is understanding exactly what messages are being given to her all day long. So that's one of the reasons you got to be in the comments too. We're always going to check in with the voicemails. I've got a special message from Reggie Hooks, our producer. The first voicemail is about something that's very important to you, Jalen Rose, about power. But if power is something that's important to you and you have not seen the latest episode, fast forward about 4 minutes because there is a spoiler coming. Don't say we didn't warn you. Don't tweet at us. There's a spoiler coming in this voicemail of a major plot point of power. Let's listen to the voicemail.
What up, though? This is Derek from Chicago, man. Shout out to Red. Shout out to Jalen. Shout out to Jacoby. I miss y'all, man. I don't know what the summer's been. I got strongly worried to email to somebody at ESPN and get y'all on the air more often. Man, give me a dope pod to step to. We got college football starting up. We got NFL on the way. NBA training camps underway. So much moving on in the world of sports. But this question I got for Jalen. You can answer too, Jacoby, if you got some insight, but I know Jalen, he only watches a certain number of shows, and this show is near and dear to his heart. Near and dear to my heart, too. My wife and I, we watch it about 1 o'clock in the morning here in Chicago on Sunday mornings every chance we get. So I need to know Jalen's reaction to the death of Kanan Stark. Now, this voicemail is on Tuesday, so hopefully people have had the opportunity to watch Power. But as soon as I saw Kanan get shot, first reaction was, what does Jalen think about this? And let me know how y'all feel on the death of Kanan and how the rest of Power is going to play out. Keep getting them checked. Keep doing what y'all doing. Shout out to Jalen for JLA. I'm a teacher here in Chicago. So keep doing it for the youth. All right, man. Y'all be easy.
Thank you for the call. We appreciate the love. Stand up, Chi-Town. Go to Garrett's and eat on Rush Street. Go to Rush Street and eat some Gibsons. Go grab some Garrett's, my favorite. I was conflicted by this last week's episode. I really was. I was like, wait a minute. 50, a.k.a. Kanan, got killed? And then I saw him at the end with the video. I'm like, oh, he ready to work on his album. That's what it is. That's what it is. I seen him up there with Uncle Murder and 6ix9ine. I'm like, oh, okay. 50 about to work on his music. That's what he like. I ain't got time to be acting right now. But no, in all honesty, I was surprised, disappointed that that character was eliminated because I liked the dynamic. He was able to needle both sides. He was indirectly in Dre's ear through his underlings, and he clearly was spending time with Ghost and Tommy, and Tasha didn't like it at all, while still kicking it with Tyreek. Like, he was the one person that kicked it with everybody indirectly or directly. Mm-hmm. And so I liked him being the straw that stirred the drink because he was kind of like the pace setter for that role. With that being said, it made me think, what's going to be next? Like, how are they now going to develop a character that now becomes an adversary? Because that's what that person is going to have to be. Dre now continues to, and again, this is a spoiler alert, I would have thought, based on how he was moving, that Dre would have got killed and or Tyreek would have got killed before it came. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty fair to say. I like that the relationships are unfolding. I like that Tommy's back kicking it with Keisha, and he's having family dinners with his dad, who just got out of jail, and his wife / stepmom, who told him about getting an ambulance because wouldn't nobody be surprised to hear it zooming down the street at 2 a.m. I'm ready to see that idea get built out. It's always a wow moment when I see Angela and Tasha in the same room at the same time with Ghost. And one of them calling him James and the other one calling him Jamie, his pet name. And then he leaves the room after kicking it with both of them and like, if y'all want to catch up with me, y'all can hit me on the cell. I like that. And so, not to give too much away, but like, I love where this is going. I'm going to hate when it gets to the end of this season. But if you have not seen it, make sure you check it out. We will do another pod at the top of the week, and I'll make sure I fully break this one down, and also I'll have some content from this week's episode to talk about.
Perfect. We got time for one more voicemail.
Hi, Jalen, Jacoby. Shout out Reggie. First long-time listener, first-time caller, and my question is, do you feel, since you guys now live in New York, where do you feel like the Knicks are going to be this season? That's my question. Enjoy the rest of your day now. Take care.
Thank you for the call.
Shout out.
Appreciate the love. What do you think, David?
I'm excited for this next season. Keep the expectations low. You know, just keep the expectations low. With KP being out, no one's talking about the playoffs. They're not. You notice that this year? Usually it's, are the Knicks going to be a playoff team? No one's saying that this year. No. Can the Knicks develop some of their young players? Of course. Kevin Knox looks extremely productive in the summer league, and you've still got some other players. Tim Hardaway Jr. is still there. Moutier still there. You know, Trey Burke is there. Michigan man. There's things happening with the Knicks this year. There's a lot to see. I'll be at Madison Square Garden supporting this team, and then when they start getting good in about 2 or 3 years and the prices go up, I'll be there a lot less. But I always like to get in early. You know, I'm a Die Easy fan, and I'm going to be back on my Knicks this year. I'll be at Madison Square Garden. And then when KP comes back, maybe they can build some momentum to start getting a free agent or two in the offseason and then be a playoff team next year. That's where they are.
And you also omitted the guy that's going to lead them in rebounding and be a double-digit scorer, Enes Kanter.
That's right.
They have a few things going in the positive direction that I really like. Steve Mills is the president. Scott Perry, my former collegiate coach as an assistant when I was with Michigan, also a longtime friend of he and his family. Saw him at the JRLA golf outing.
Shout out.
On Monday. His lovely wife, Kim. Known him for a really long time. He's worked under and with Joe Dumars in Detroit, Sam Presti in Seattle. He's a vet, worked in Orlando. And so I know what he's going to bring to the table, has already brought to the table. He's done more than Phil Jackson already. I like the hire of David Fizdale. I appreciate when you can get the best person at the right time. And I understand that Fizz is going to be able to develop young talent as he was able to do and be a part of in a couple of jobs, in particular with the Hawks and championship pedigree with the Miami Heat. And so now what do you do when you're drafting? Boom, you go get Kevin Knox. Great pick. Everybody was wondering what they were going to do. Are they going to be able to get a really game-changing player? It's not necessarily a top 5 pick. What are they going to be able to do with a top 10 pick? And boom, they got Kevin Knox. And as you mentioned, he turned out to Summer League. So their future is bright, and I look forward to going to a lot of games with you.
Yeah, I look forward to going too. And it's fun to watch someone like Mitchell Robinson get a little shine too. You know, it's Knox look good and Robinson look good. It just made him feel like they've got a brain trust there that's different than the old regime that's got there that's picking some good picks, you know, which I'm supported by. I'll be at Madison Square Garden.
I got a Mitchell Robinson comment for you. Because a lot of people haven't seen or heard about him, and rightfully so. That's what happens when you find yourself not being eligible to play in college. But as a 7-footer, he has bounce.
A lot
and
of it.
He's going to be blocking shots. So Remember when you heard it first on this program, Mitchell Robinson has a chance to be like a young Hassan Whiteside.
Oh. I like that. Well, I like going to Knicks games with you. I love getting back in the studio with you, Jalen Rose. It's been a long time. We've had tech problems, travel problems, schedule problems. But, come mid-September, we'll be back in full swing, giving you a pod to step to every single day. We're going to try to get one more in this week. We're definitely going to try to get a couple in next week. Thank you so much for sticking with us. Don't forget to call 985-80-JALEN to leave us voicemails. Shout out to everybody behind the scenes that had to do extra work today as we fought through some tech problems.
Shout out.
Big shout to Reg, and big shout to you, Jalen Rose. We'll be back. Why?
We're not done. We're not done. Got to give the people time. Give people what they want.
They're my little guys. I love them.